Hey, my ladies, welcome to another episode of the High Value Covenant Woman, and I am your girl, Christina. So, High Value Covenant Woman, we are actually going to start talking about what that means exactly. Okay. Um, First, let me tell you a little bit about me. Um, as far as when it comes to this high value covenant thing, let's take the word covenant out of it and let's just concentrate on high value woman, which was what I used to always aspire to be. I wanted to be, that bad chick on the block, that every dude wanted, right? But things in my life did not play out the way that I always envisioned that it would. For instance, I didn't go to college right away. You know, I had to wait a year because of financial reasons in order to get in school. And so I finally, was able to go to Hampton, during the summer. Um, and that I did my first year there. But then life happened again and I didn't have the money to continue going to school. And see, I was like I'm the oldest out of eight. And so I was like the first one out of, my mom and my dad, who actually went to school. And it was hard to like really know the process and understand the process. So I didn't go right back for my sophomore year. And so years went by and I'm, still struggling to like find my way because ever since I was little, in school, it's like, okay, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a singer. And, I want to do all of this. And when I couldn't go back to school right away, that did something to me. It hurt because I was always like a B student, right? I was always an overachiever. I was, yearbook editor and this and that. I was really good in school, and so that was like a huge part of my identity. And so when I wasn't able to go back to school my second year, it's like I had no idea really where to go from there, because I knew in order to be this female, to be the image of this woman that I've always had before me, I saw in like the videos and just the movies and everything that I looked at. Because during my era, I saw movies like Boomerang, it was Eddie Murphy and Robin Givens and Halle Berry was in that movie. It was a good movie, right? But I saw them and I was like, they were like real powerful women. They had their careers. They could dress, wore their makeup, hair done, and everything like that. And that's what I wanted. That's who I wanted to be. And but I knew I had to go to school to do it. But when I couldn't go to school, it was like, okay, what now? It was like for years I was lost trying to figure it out. I even, um, so I decided to start back in on my singing career because I always wanted to be a singer. I was always writing, always doing poetry and things like that. And so I, was trying to meet with producers and I did meet with producers because I grew up in Maryland, but then I moved back to North Carolina, and that's where I started meeting more producers, believe it or not, in Greensboro, North Carolina. But as you can see, it didn't work out that way. I don't know if it was because of the Greensboro producers. And, nothing bad against a producer from Greensboro, but I'm just saying, the ones that I met up with didn't really do nothing for me. And instead, it was like they were always trying to date me. And I ended up getting so discouraged from that, right? And then I tried to go back to school. The first time it didn't work because I just, I still had the loans from my old school. And I was like, this life is lifing right now, and nothing is working out for me. And I was very discouraged because I wanted to live up to this image of where, of how I saw all these other women living. And so long story short, I'm not gonna give you like I'm like where is she going with this? But yeah, long story short, I did end up just going into the workforce, taking jobs that, I really wasn't happy with. But I did eventually go back to school, get my degree like I wanted. And then it was like, okay, what now? I still didn't feel complete. I still wasn't living that life. That these women were living. I wasn't at that level. And I went through that for years and years trying to be this woman, trying to be this woman who had it all together, this woman who had a fabulous house, who drove a fabulous car, had clothes, had friends, could go out to dinner. And, I just wanted to be that woman so bad. But I never got to that point. And when I thought that I may get there, it's like my life came crashing down around me in August of 2023. And God told me to leave my 9 to 5, and to embark on a new journey in which He actually began to form me. And I'm going to leave it right there for a minute, okay? Because in the last episode, we talked about why this season feels so long. But today, I want to talk about what we become while we're in this season. And that's where I'm going to pick up from my story. I know what I've been becoming. So let's talk about this phrase, okay? Let's talk about the phrase high value woman. Depending on where you heard it, the phrase, it can feel empowering or exhausting or even maybe a little confusing, you know. For some of us, it sounded like confidence. I know that's what it sounded like to me growing up because I saw it. It looked and sounded like confidence. Um, for others, it could sound like pressure, which later on in my life, when I wasn't obtaining that level, it started to become pressure for me. So today, I don't want us to focus on chasing a trend. Okay, we're going to slow it down just a little bit because if we're going to use this language, I want us to be clear about what it actually means and what it doesn't because we're not using the world's definition for anything. This is what God has led me through discovery and my relationship with Him. Okay. Now, definitions do matter, okay? Because words shape our behavior. And when we have vague definitions, then we end up measuring ourselves by a standard that God never set. He never intended for us to do that. And a lot of women have been trying to become this high value woman by performing instead of actually forming, into her. You see, performing, you're just putting on an act, but forming, you are actually becoming something. Okay? And it's not growth. It's not, it's exhaustion when you have to perform. Okay? So let's clean this up just a little bit. High value is not trying to be impressive. It's not being endlessly patient. It's not being low maintenance, high maintenance. It's not being desired by so many people. It's actually being chosen without clarity. It's being agreeable at the cost of your peace. And high value is not how much attention you can attract or how much discomfort you can endure. Okay? Because endurance without discernment is not maturity. You're just frustrating yourself. And we want, and let me tell you why performance is the wrong measure. Okay? Because I said, we're not performing, we're forming, right? But this is why performance is actually wrong, because many of us as women are taught directly or indirectly that if we did enough, if we give enough, if we healed enough or waited enough, then the outcome will eventually come, right? So we continuously try to improve ourselves, you know, but while you're trying to improve, but how are you trying to improve yourself without knowing who you are? If you don't know your identity, then what are you improving? That's just going to lead to performance, because you are just trying to perform, and it's becoming something that others want you to be, right? And then that performance creates anxiety because you're wondering, am I doing enough, or am I even being enough? And did I mess this up? High value cannot be sustained if it depends on constant effort. Okay. So let's reclaim this definition. All right. Because you need to know. Let's reclaim the definition. Here it is. This is what we're using on this podcast. This is what I'm using on my blog. Okay. A high value covenant woman is a woman who has allowed God to make her whole before asking Him to make her partner. That's it. No hustle, no ranking, no comparison. Wholeness is the standard, not perfection. Now, what does this wholeness actually look like? You know, it looks like emotional regulation instead of emotional reactions, discernment instead of assumptions, clarity instead of confusion, boundaries instead of ultimatums, peace instead of anxiety driven attachment. Okay? A whole woman doesn't rush to be chosen. She is paying attention to alignment, and she doesn't need grand gestures, and she is looking for a consistency. She doesn't need constant reassurance, and she trusts her discernment. Now, you're probably wondering, like, what in the world does this matter for a covenant? And I'm going to tell you, covenant does not survive alone on attraction. Because, yeah, you can see that man, like, girl, he is fine. He is everything. You go tell your mama, your sister, your best friend, and your next door neighbor how good this man look, right? But I've been in those situations, and I'm pretty sure most of you may have been in those situations too, where once you get past the looks and you just look at him from the outs, you actually start seeing the inside of him. You see that it's empty in there, right? He's missing a whole lot of what he needs to have to make the relationship work, right? And that's not to bring down that man, because the same thing could be said about you too, sis. If you look deep inside of you after the lashes, the weave and the makeup and the butt implants and the breast implants and everything else is gone, what do you have inside of you? Right? Do you have emotional maturity? Are you spiritually stable? Are you secure in your identity? You know, are you completely whole? Because let me tell you, when people think that they have everything, you think because you got money, oh, I'm straight. I can go out here and buy everything I want, right? And a lot of people equate money as the one thing that they need to be whole. And that's not it, baby. Money is not equivalent to wholeness. So based off of all those the definitions that I just gave, you know, um on what wholeness looks like, emotional regulation, discernment, clarity, boundaries, peace, those things. It also includes, if you look at it on a pie, okay, on a pie graph, yes, you have money, but you also have health. Are you healthy? Are you fit? Do you work out? Are you in shape? Or every time you walk up 3 steps, you out of breath, right? Do you have joy in your life? Excuse me, no, are you happy, right? Do you have security? Not like, not like mall cop security, but, are you secure with like your finances, with your health, with, everything else in your life? Do you, in your future? Do you have purpose? Do you know what your purpose is in life? Or are you just going to work, coming home, probably go out on a weekend with your girls and you think that's life? Or are you really living in the purpose that God has for you? Do you have peace? Or are you still hanging on to a man God told you to let go 2 years ago? You know? Are you Do you know your identity? We talked about that. Do you know your identity in Christ? Or are you still confused about who you are? Relationships, not just romantic relationships, but how are your friendships? How is your family relationships? How are relationships in your life? All of these things equal wholeness. So if you're missing even one slice of that pie, one piece of that, then you're not whole, baby. And so you still have work that you have to do. Because yes, a covenant relationship does not survive on attraction alone, but neither if you're missing one of those pieces, either you or him, right? Because God is not about to bring two incomplete people together and hope that love fills the gaps. Okay? He is forming people who can stand whole on their own, because partnership becomes multiplication, is not a repair job. Because when you're whole, when you bring two whole people together, two holes can cover completely. But if you bring two half, and a statement that I cannot stand is, I am waiting for my other half. Because if you bring two halves together, you can't cover each other. You just connect and you just stop at that one point, right? And you're both missing it. You're both missing something. But if you're both whole, then put two holes over each other. Those two holes are covering each other. Okay, so stop saying, I am waiting for my other half. You are not half a person. And if you are half a person right now, then you still have more work with God that you need to do. And this is not a judgment, this is just truth. Because if you want the kind of covenant relationship that God has for you, then baby, you have to put in the work now. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. You are not getting out of it, because if you keep asking God, why, how long is it going to be? God, when are you going to send me that man? God, when are you going to give me marriage? Then apparently it's something that you need to do, because if you have been waiting for years for this to happen, then it's more work that you need to put into this. Okay? So let's talk about fear. Some of us may hear high value and worry that it means becoming maybe cold, guarded, or unapproachable. That's not what it is. High value does not mean hard, it is healthy. Healthy people don't chase clarity, they expect it. They don't confuse chemistry with commitment. Remember, just because you got chemistry with somebody doesn't mean that, oh, okay, we're meant to be together. No, they observe patterns. Okay. And healthy people don't abandon themselves to keep someone else comfortable. Now, this definition should be freeing for you because it removes pressure. Now you are not trying to impress. You are not auditioning. You are not trying to prove your worth. Because you don't have to. You are focusing more on your formation. And once you get that formation, then you will have your direction. You will know where God wants to lead you because your first thought and the first person you are married to is God, not some man that he's going to bring you down the road. That's not your thought. That's not your thought. That should not be your focus at all. Having a man, getting married, even though this channel is for that, is, let me say this. Yes, even though my podcast is helping single Christian women uh, prepare for marriage, the key word in that is prepare for marriage, right? So I first thought should be God because he is our first husband. Okay. So this is why we're taking time to clearly define this. You cannot become what you cannot name. And if you're unclear what the standard is, then you're going to continue chasing the wrong things in life. All right. So let's take a minute. Take a moment and ask yourself without judging, okay? Where have I been measuring my value by response instead of by alignment? Because once you are aware of this, then it's going to change your posture. Okay. Now, our homework this week, I want you to look at the wholeness in your life and write down the areas in your life where you believe you are not yet whole. Okay. And then I also want you to write down 3 qualities you believe reflect wholeness, not performance, and not what makes someone want you, but what makes you stable, clear, and at peace. Okay, so I'm going to, if you're keeping up with my blog post, I'm going to also write a blog on my Substack blog, The High Value Covenant Woman. I'm going to also put the pie chart on there if you need to see it. But just to go over everything that's in the pie chart again so that you can do your homework, find out where you are missing wholeness from. Is it in finance, health, joy, security, purpose, peace, identity, or relationships? Okay, that is the wholeness chart. Okay. All right, my loves. In the next episode, we are going to reframe singleness completely, not as a waiting room, but as a workshop. All right. So please, I hope you all are enjoying this. If you have questions, please ask questions below. I'm reading all of the comments, but I want you more than anything to stay with this process. Okay. I want you to stay with this process because I believe in my heart, in my soul, that God is creating a new woman to rise up, a woman who can fight, spiritual battles, a woman who can stand strong in the spirit, not protect a man and not have a man protect her, but can stand with him as equal partners. Yes, our husband will be the head of the household, but as a friend of mine once told me, his mom said to her husband, a man may be the head, but he needs a neck to turn it. All right, my loves. That's all I have for you today. If no one has told you today, God loves you, and so do I. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.